We'll have a chance to see some severe storms and 1 out of 5 marginal risk. Wednesday, if I was a betting man, I would also say we'd be under a marginal 1 out of 5 risk, but we'll cross that road when we get there. We'll inch towards Wednesday and we'll know more.
Yes, we will. Thanks, lady. And thanks for watching WAAY 31 News at 10. Stick around. WAAY 31 Law Call is coming up next.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Robert Lane. Sharon Doviet has the evening off. Well, we're here every week listening and answering your live phone calls and reading your texts. And if you have questions or a comment of any kind on a legal problem, give us a call or give us a text. It's the same phone number, 256-536-0077. And with me is Attorney Will League from Timberlake League in Brooks.
Robert, so happy to be here. First, now while we miss Sharon, I'm so happy we have the godfather of live call-in legal topics. And you've been with us almost 30 years since the beginning.
3 decades, yeah.
And so I'm happy to be up here with you and we'll answer some questions. Yeah, be brave. Give us a call, shoot us a text. Happy to answer your questions live tonight. We'll try. If we don't know the answer, we'll make one up. So it's a lot of legal stuff's going on. I know we've got a video to watch, but happy to take your questions, and I'm glad you're up here with us.
Well,
Robert.
you're very kind, and one of the nice things is you can take those texts, and he's much more technology oriented than I am. So we'll keep a look for your text.
That's
all
right. That's right.
Let's go to the video with You Make the Law Call. Now watch this guy. Will, tell me what he can.
All right, so he looks like he's minding his own business. Everything's good.
Yeah, life is good. And oh.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, can he sue for? I mean, that must have scared him to death.
Okay.
But he wasn't injured.
So I didn't see that he was hurt. There's a couple different issues here. Oh my goodness. So it looks, so the debris hit him. Don't know what's going on with him. So you got obviously, was this guy drunk? What's going on with this driver? You got property damage everywhere. So let's talk about liability. So the driver obviously is liable unless there's something off screen we don't know about, right?
Right.
So he's liable, or his insurance company is liable up to their limits, up to the damage that he caused. So it looks like he's got a reconstruction on the house. There's all kinds of stuff that has to be going on. So does this guy have a personal injury claim? Depending on, did that debris hit him? Was he hurt? Didn't look like he was, so the injury claim would not be viable as what I know now. But he would be liable, or his insurance carrier would be liable to pay for any damage he caused. There may be some criminal charges from, was it DUI? Was it intended? Was he texting and driving? There's a lot of distracted driving going on. Obviously, this guy didn't keep his car under control, ran into this house, so there would be some liability on some level. Just don't know the damages yet.
Is it you go against the auto insurance, your homeowner's insurance, his homeowner's insurance, everybody's insurance?
Right, exactly. The procedure of it is basically the defendant driver who ran into the house. He's liable, but usually people have insurance behind that. So let's say this homeowner sued. It would be against, let's say, John Doe. And then the jury would not know that it's either State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, or anybody behind that particular driver. It's you versus John Doe. And if there's a verdict, typically the insurance carrier comes in and pays up to their limits. Anything above their limits would be directly responsible. The driver will be responsible to make those payments. So make sure you've got enough coverage. Number one, make sure you're not texting and driving, drinking and driving, and doing what this guy did. But number two, make sure you've got enough insurance, to cover you if, God forbid, something like that happens. We see, 1/3 of the drivers out there are not insured. And so, Robert, we do a lot of motor vehicle wrecks, and let's say the defendant driver is uninsured, illegal alien, all those things. If you don't have what's called underinsured motorist coverage, you cannot make a personal injury claim. And it's a sad situation when you've got medical bills, you're injured, you're out of work. Let's face it, a lot of people are working paycheck to paycheck. You're out of work, things get weird quick. And you gotta make sure you've got that coverage to bridge that gap, to make sure you're protected if the unthinkable happens. And sadly, it's not unthinkable because 1/3 of the drivers out on Alabama roads are uninsured. So make sure to look at your underinsured motorist protection. Go over that with your agent, because I've seen, Robert, so many people come in, Dave Ramsey said don't get that coverage. or it was too much. It's cheap coverage and it protects you against the unknown.
Well, that's what amazes me. I see commercials and they go, we'll keep it the lowest, the lowest. Well, that means
Only
you're
pay
not
for
paying-
what you need. That's really a misnomer, because I got so many people come into our office, I only wanted to get liability. That's the only thing the law requires. Well, that's true, but it does not protect you against the uninsured motorist out there, whether it be an illegal immigrant, whether it be someone who's just not doing what they're supposed to do. And both those fall in that category, by the way. But make sure to protect yourself against an unknown risk. The insurance companies have to provide this. There has to be a waiver for you not to get it. And so it's common practice for insurance carriers to go ahead and, hey, just go ahead and sign this to save you a little bit of money. And usually you're signing away your underinsured motorist benefits. And that's because the insurance companies do not want to insure for an unknown risk out there. And that is so important. Alabama law requires them to offer it, and you must have a written exclusion for that particular coverage, and there's a reason why.
Fascinating. All right, you ready for a phone call?
Let's do it.
Okay,
Let's do
well,
it.
Rodney's been very, very patient. Rodney, what's on your mind tonight?
When the police stop you for a traffic infraction, do they have the right to search your car?
All right, so you're talking about the Constitution, and there's been a lot of Constitution's been in the news here recently. First Amendment, to say the least, right? Let's go to the Fourth Amendment. You're on a public highway. You're stopped. Number one, are you stopped legally or illegally? And number two, does the officer fear for his or her safety? And number three, do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your vehicle? And those questions must be answered, okay? So if you are stopped illegally, any search that the officers do that produces evidence of a crime under the fruit of the poisonous tree, that evidence does not come in to your particular case and cannot be used against you. Can they search you? They can, but sometimes they may not. Because the Fourth Amendment against unreasonable searches and seizures by the government precludes those searches and seizures that's not in accordance with the law. So, was the officer afraid for his or her safety and under an objective standard? And did you have a reasonable expectation of privacy? And if you did, they cannot search you without a warrant. Now, that's under the law. In the real world, sometimes they search you, and a judge may let that into evidence. So I wouldn't, as soon as the officer stops you, I wouldn't go into, I know my rights. Follow the instructions. Make sure the officer doesn't feel unsafe in any way. And then, I'll record that particular exchange. And we don't see as much as we used to about just blatant violations of the Constitution with search and seizure. But again, protect yourself if you can have it on tape, because if they do find stuff and it was a bad stop, that does not come into evidence. So they can, but sometimes they may not, and that evidence can't be used against you.
Well, explain poisonous tree.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Let's say that you have contraband on you. You've got, heroin, okay? You're driving down the road. You're in your lane. You're not doing anything. You hadn't changed lanes illegally. You're not speeding. You're not this. You're not that. But let's say the cop doesn't like the way you look. Pulls you over just because you look different. Well, you cannot, discriminate against people. And if they pull you over and have no reasonable suspicion, that's the standard. Is there a reasonable suspicion to make this stop? Because officers can't just stop you because they feel like it, right? And so if there's no reasonable suspicion that there's a crime being committed, then that particular stop is against the law. And even though you had contraband on you, that stop was from a poisonous tree, and that heroin they found was the fruit of that poisonous tree.
So anything that comes from that tree can't be used.
Exactly. So anything that comes from that illegal stop cannot be used. Now, let's be honest. The guy's got heroin, that's a bad thing, right?
Right.
Well, it may be worse if the officers can stop you for just the way you look. And so even though the officer might have been right in this instance, you may not stop people for just the way they look. You have to have a reasonable basis under the law.
Well, and whatever you think about that, you can give us a call here, and we'll also answer your questions, but we want to hear your comments too. Can I do some of the new laws that are going in?
Absolutely, we got some good stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's all starting here in Alabama October 1st, and I'm going to start with what is sort of strange. It's a law that lets people notify people of shark attacks down in Mobile.
Lulu's Law.
Yeah, we need a law to do that?
Well, so I guess it's down in Mobile, Baldwin County.
Yeah.
And a law that you can send out, there's a shark attack, that there's a dangerous shark in the water. Now, I don't know who's going to be on their phones in the water, but maybe send it out to people that we're fine with that law. Let's warn people that there's a dangerous shark.
It can't hurt.
It can't hurt. So that was an interesting one. That's going to go into effect.
Well, but what I really want your opinion is the back to blue law.
Right.
So backing the blue, backing the police law that goes into effect October 1st.
So basically, it protects officers from being held responsible for their actions as long as they follow the law. And really, I'm confused as to why that is, because it's already a law, right? Officers have what's called discretionary immunity. And if you've been following, I'm working on the Hartselle police chase wreck. And basically in this, the preliminary evidence that there was a traffic violation, a high-speed chase in a highly densely populated area. One young man was killed and others were injured by the fleeing defendant, if you will. And the rub in that is, first off, the family supports law enforcement, as does this bill, by the way. And they want officers to have the power to take on the bad guys, right? And so we have to ask the question, if it was just a traffic violation and you got a high-speed chase that's continuing into a downtown, highly populated area, what's the risk-benefit analysis? You want to know what the officers knew at the time. Was it a traffic violation, or was there a kidnapped child in the trunk, right? And so maybe if it's the latter, a high-speed chase might be warranted, and maybe society and the public would accept that risk. But for a mere traffic violation, this young man, in the prime of his youth, was killed. And so let's get that DUI, or let's get that improper lane change guy later, or let technology take over. Maybe they got his tag. But the benefit analysis of that high-speed chase needs to be evaluated. And back to this law, back the blue. Officers have what's called discretionary immunity. They have discretion to speed, to go through intersections with their lights and sirens on. But they don't have discretion to violate policy and procedure. And if those policy and procedures say you do not continue a high-speed chase in a downtown, highly populated area, then that's an issue, right? And so the officer is not immune, and the department's not immune if they violate well-established policy and procedures of the department. And so this law really mirrors the law that we have already, and so it's kind of redundant, but hey, my clients, we want to protect the blue. We want the officers to be able to do their job without fear of lawsuits. But similar to the unreasonable search and seizures, they don't have carte blanche to do anything and everything, because let's be honest, throughout history, power has corrupted. And so there has to be checks and balances, and that's the system we have in place, to support the law enforcement, but also keep their powers in check to what's reasonable in the community standards.
Well, if you have questions or you have comments, we are live right into your living room or your bedroom here. So give us a call. We'll be back in just a minute.
It's your calls live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League and Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of attorney Michael Timberlake, attorney Will League, attorney Heath Brooks, attorney William Maservi, and hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Well, Sharon does have the weekend off, but we are here with Will League. And so any question, any legal question you want, 256-536-0077. Text us or call us. We're live. We'll give you an answer.
That's right.
Now, you brought a little picture.
We did. You know, it's dove season opened up last weekend, and I took these two young men, never been dove hunting in their lives. We got them some licenses, so we were legal, and took them dove hunting and had a great time. And you know, they both did well, and it was a good little afternoon. So you know, got to spend some time outdoors with them and show them something that they've never done
That's
before.
Great.
It was fantastic.
Let me brag on Timberlake League and Brooks. They do the Wheelchair Brigade down at Broadway Theater League, and Back to the Future is coming next week.
You know, got a great lineup. You know, Broadway Theater League does a great job of getting the arts into Huntsville, and you know, if you're going to be out and about, come check out Back to the Future.
And
right?
what they do is they'll meet you, take you to your seat in that wheelchair, pick you up.
Yeah,
And when it's over and bring you back, it's all brought to you by Timberlake League and Brooks.
That's right.
And here, you want the secret? This show is in town Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's right.
So
That's right.
you get tickets on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll get the best seats.
That's right. That's exactly right. Back to the Future. Hey, we have a text in from Mary.
Okay, Mary.
Co-signed for her niece's student loans with Sally Mae in 2014. Her niece unfortunately filed for Chapter 7. Sally Mae's now coming after her. What can she do? Well, if she was a co-signer, now remember, if you co-sign for somebody, you're just as responsible, kind of like vouching for somebody in the movies, right? And so they filed for Chapter 7. Just because you're your partner, you are still on the hook for those. And so, you know, Sally Mae can institute a claim against you, and that will stay with you until you satisfy that debt. And so be careful. I know when you sign on or co-sign for somebody, you think everything's going to be great. But once they go south on you, it's you. And the student loans, they're pretty significant interest. So try and address it sooner rather than later if you can. You could file a claim against your niece, but that claim might be dischargeable in bankruptcy. And so that's something you're going to have to consider. So that's a tough spot you're in, Mary. You know, I appreciate you trying to help your niece, but sadly, in this instance, it goes under no good deed goes unpunished. Mm-hmm.
Shannon from Huntsville has been waiting. Shannon, what's on your mind tonight?
Hello. I would like to know, why is it when there are emergency vehicles trying to get through traffic and no one pulls over? It has happened every day this week. No one has ever stopped and have come close to a collision, especially at University and Sparkman Light.
You know, first off, it's the law. You have to give way to emergency vehicle. And I guess, Shannon, you know, it's different now the law is the same, but people's reaction. Maybe people are so desensitized that they aren't, you know, doing everything they can to get out of the way. I will say that when I'm driving, there's an ambulance, people try and get out of the way, but it's not like when I was a kid where everybody would stop and everything stopped. So people are a little bit desensitized, but maybe they think they can get out of the way and still keep going where they're going. Don't really know, hadn't seen what you've seen. However, it's still the law. You have to give way to emergency vehicle, and you can be liable, you know, if you do not. Liable criminally. You know, the same law, if there's an officer pulled over, you have to get over one lane. Let's not put these officers at risk. And so you'd hope people are having more respect for the law than less, but sadly it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Shannon, we really appreciate your giving us a call. Thank you so very much. We're going to go over to Florence now, and Michael's been waiting. Michael?
Yes. I have a close friend of mine whose son was brutally attacked at a local high school during school hours. I was wondering, how liable is the high school, and do some public schools have immunity?
All right, so I think I know the case you're talking about. There is some immunity for the state employees, the teachers, all right? And so let's say he was assaulted on the school grounds. The question is for the school, your question is the school liable? First off, the one who assaulted is number one. They are liable unless there is something I don't know about in this situation. Now, the question is, it's a direct assault, all right? So not only is a civil case, but a criminal case can be brought against the one that assaulted the young man. Is the school liable? Now you're asking about criminal acts of a third party. So what the traditional sense is, let's say a fast food place is robbed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, they decide not to get a security or cameras or do nothing to change anything about security. Well, if on the 5th day or the 6th day the store is robbed and someone is injured, well, they knew or should have known under reasonable standard that this is dangerous. So thereby a third party, the owner, could be liable for the third party crime where they come in to rob the place. Same in the scenario with the school. Now they're going to have some immunities, but that's for negligence. But they willfully violate their obligation to keep these kids safe. They knew about it. The kid told the teachers he's going to assault this kid and they did nothing about it. Then that may go into the arena where the school could be liable for criminal acts of a third party. But you have to have those steps to then get over the immunity. And so not only is the assaulter liable, but the school could be as well, depending on what they knew, when they knew it, and what should they have known and what should they have done.
Jennifer from Morgan County, if you can keep your question brief, we'll try and get you an answer. Jennifer, are you still with me?
Turn your TV down, Jennifer.
Okay.
Go ahead, ask your question.
Yes. Me and my husband have a home paid off together, and he has debt, and I'm not on his debt. He's on the home. If he files bankruptcy, do I have to include my home?
Are you guys own the home separately or together?
Well, right now it's only in my name.
Was it transferred recently?
No.
Okay. If that's not an asset that he owns, now you'd have to check with a bankruptcy expert, by the way, but if that's not an asset that he owns or has a part of, I don't believe that would be subject to his creditors, okay? Now, let's say you guys had this debt and he transferred in your name to avoid that debt. It could be a fraudulent transfer, and if that's the case, then the home could be up for grabs to the creditors. But from how you're describing it does not sound like he is going to have ownership, so thereby his bankruptcy is not going to affect you as long as he honestly does not have ownership in that particular asset.
Well, we're going to take a break here. We'll be right back. Stay with us. League of Timberlake League and Brooks. You can give them a call at 256-536-0770. And go check out their website at law-injury.com.
And our very own Sharon Dovitt, family law attorney, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com. You know, we got one more question in from Susan. She broke her arm in a wreck. She has health insurance. She had surgery and physical therapy. With a case like this, she has $15,000 in bills. Is she throwing away money by getting a lawyer? You know, depends, really. You get $15,000 in bills. That could be what Blue Cross Blue Shield paid. Remember, you could have maybe $80,000, $90,000 in bills. Under Alabama law, the jury only gets to hear about what Blue Cross Blue Shield paid. That's a change in the law from a decade ago. So you want to make sure that you get all that into evidence. If you can't get into evidence, you can't get anywhere with the bills. Sometimes you have to have expert testimony, take a deposition tomorrow in a case just like this. So you have to have a lawyer to get that admitted into evidence. It gets highly technical and crazy quick. I can't tell you how many times people call us, Robert, they started a case on their own, then all of a sudden it gets so complicated they just take over. So just be careful but doing that, because oftentimes we can't get the case out of a ditch depending on what's happened already.
Well, you've been great tonight. We'll see you next Sunday, and I hope you give us a call. We'll be live.
Good night.